In this episode, the Handyman pros talk about the basics of composting, some of the advantages, benefits, and a quick method to create your own composting bin. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation. This edition is entitled Composting. To help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy John. John, what's been going on this week?
Greetings, Larry, this week. Greetings. This week, while we're all working this week, what did we do? I don't know if I told, I was finally fixing I don't know if I told this story before, but I was like working on my deck, and I decided, you know what, I don't like the bumps and things on the top of my handrails in my portico. So I just got out a big sander and sanded down the whole thing, got all the paint off, and sanded them smooth, and then repainted them. So I don't know what got into me. I got inspired to do that. It scared me a little bit, getting inspired to do something like that. But yeah, I did that, and I looked around, and I look over at my neighbor's house, and he's got a great big garden. I'm not a garden guy. I don't know why. I just never really did it. When I was growing up, we always had a garden with the tomatoes and the this and the carrots and the that. But that's not me. Now, he's got this great big thing, it's all filled with dirt, and our soil, and they got this really nice garden and a big wooden thing that they all built up. And I know that you did it, and I know about the quality of the dirt and the soil, let's call it soil, that you need to grow things properly. So I know you do it. And that kind of brings us around to, discussing this composting, because when you do composting, you get some really high quality soil for gardens, correct?
Yeah. So, when we decided on this topic, it was kind of interesting. So, number one, I want to set the stage. I want to talk. You brought it up, and it's about soil. So here in North Georgia, y'all might not. You might know this. You might not know this. But North Georgia has all this red clay soil, John. Right? And red clay is like. How would you describe it? Yeah, it's terrible, right?
It's awful. It's when my parents came down here from Chicago, we had all black soil,
right?
All that rich loamy earth.
Yeah.
And he was like, "How the hell does anything grow down here?"
And the short answer is it basically grows in the top less than 1 inch of the dirt, right? Which is basically the truth. There's very few deep root systems here in North Georgia, which is why we get a lot of trees and blah blah blah. Anyway, that's why we have lots of ice storms and problems with that. But so I want to set the stage. So everybody knows, or if you don't know, I grew up on a farm, and so when we grew up outside Rochester, New York, and in Western New York, very very what John's talking about, loamy, dark brown earth soil, right? Really high quality growth soil. Tons of farming goes on in that area, or at least it used to. I don't know if it still does, but it used to. And the dirt was brown. And I mean, it took nothing in those areas to grow anything, right? You put seeds in the ground and the stuff came up. Came down to Georgia and went to do my first garden a million years ago, and I was like, nothing's growing, and then I'm reading, right. This is pre-internet. And so I started asking around, you got to condition the soil. You got to do this. You got to do that. I'm like, yeah, we're not gardening anymore, blah, blah, blah. So fast forward a couple of years and we're actually just putting in some ornamental beds, now. And so we're doing that. And I'm kind of like, man, our goal is to save time, money, and aggravation, right? So paying for dirt really bothers me. I'm just going to tell you, it just bothers me. So we made the decision that we were going to compost. And so, I got on the internet, I started looking around about what to do in composting, and it's really kind of an interesting thing. So we'll just start, we always start with kind of a benefit analysis. So number one is you can create this really great soil that is amazing if you want to do any kind of gardening, or even if you just want to spread it out in your, at least here, you spread it out in your grass and it helps grow your grass. It's like, it's natural, right? the other side is it also helps. This is the ancillary benefit, but I've actually noticed this, so this is why I want to say it. You really cut down the amount of trash that you throw away into the landfill, if you want to call it that. I actually noticed that we just don't have, our trash bags aren't as full. They're just not as full, which is kind of interesting, when you think about it. And we'll get into what you can compost and what you can't compost here in a minute or two. But
so you're taking your some of your trash and creating compost out of it.
Yeah, so, I'm taking all of the organic vegetable matter that you don't use, plus things like one of the things that we compost. We're coffee drinkers, right? And this, that about me. Yeah. So I got to have my coffee in the morning. Well, I take those coffee grounds, and that becomes part of my compost bin. And I actually compost the filters as well. My coffee, I get the organic ones. My coffee filters, and they don't cost they're pennies compared to the regular ones. I throw them right in the compost bin. They compost up on the filter. So I take the whole filter, I just basically take the filter and dump it into the compost bin. And so I get rid of my coffee grounds. I get rid of any kind of vegetable matter, anything. Really anything that isn't that doesn't have grease in it. We can put in the compost bin, eggshells and stuff like that. I'm kind of getting into the nitty gritty of it, but there's
Hoffa?
Yeah. Oh well, he's got grease in him. He had grease in him. He went in the septic tank. Oh wait, sorry. But anything like that, and then actually it's funny, I just mentioned the septic tank, so we're on septic as well. It also decreases the amount of stuff that we're sticking down the sink as far as that kind of stuff, organic material that's going down the sink into the septic tank. So we're throwing, lemon rinds and things. Now we use lemon rinds for twofold, right? So one is we stick them down in the disposal to clean the disposal up to keep the scent, smell of fresh air. But honestly, if we're having a lot of drinks, and there's a lot of lemon rinds, we throw the extras in the compost bin because they compost as well. And basically, if it can rot, it doesn't. You can use it as composting. So, that's the kind of stuff. Literally, and John, you'd be amazed. This is what sort of surprised me when I said the trash bags don't seem to be as full. It's amazing how much of that stuff you throw away. Banana peels and I don't know, old bread. Shoot, we compost old bread. If you have stale bread, throw it in the compost bin.
So are you? So you just said a word there, bin. Are you using? You're throwing it in the. Is there just like on the ground? I'm just trying to imagine, or is it in some kind of a container? Or
so. You can go online, you can look at your research, you can go in and type in compost bin, and the first things that'll pop up are like these $80 and $90. I hate this. They're like machines, and they can get more expensive. They can get really expensive. Some of them have motors on them and stuff like that. So these are compost bins, and so let me give you the basis of composting. So what composting is you take organic material and you put it into a bin that has aeration in it. It has a way to get air into it. And what you're doing is you're letting it naturally decompose. And as it what happens when things decompose? They turn to dirt, right? Basically they turn to dirt. And you're putting air into them, and you need to be able to actually turn the product or mix air into the compost material. The really expensive compost bins, like the ones with motors and stuff, do it automatically, right? So, and if you want to go that way, that's fine. There's no problem. I'm going to give you a real inexpensive tip right at the very end on how to make your own compost bin, and it'll cost you, $10 or $12 tops. That's if you bought stuff brand new. You just add these things in, and most of them, like there's a lot of them out there in the $50 to $100 range where they're basically a bin and they've got a hand crank on them, and you can turn them, and it turns the stuff up, and it just basically adds air into the mix, into the compost mix. And then after and how it works is you put it in there, you do that for about, it's about 3 weeks or so is how long it takes to actually compost down to dirt. And then at the end you have this really black soil, right? And another tip is you can throw earthworms in there, and if you find any earthworms in your yard, throw them in there because they'll actually help in the decomposition process, and they'll actually help speed it up. But you do that stuff, and then you have this product, and this product is it's the highest grade earth you'll ever see in your life. I mean, it's dark black. It's freaking, you put it out in the yard and stuff just poof, it's like dropping fertilizer on it, you know? It's like crazy. The stuff that gets. You'll get sometimes, so we obviously eat a lot of tomatoes. I didn't realize this till after I put my compost out. We're getting free tomato plants, John. Of course, they're in the middle of the lawn, but hey, you know, some of my beds have tomato plants coming up in them. I'm like, hey, this is awesome. Look, I'm gonna have tomatoes coming up.
So this is just like any other big pile of stuff that's hanging around. I mean, it's got to get pretty hot, right? That's part of the process of this, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about where to compost, right? So we compost in, I call it stages, right? So I have my stages. My first stage is we actually have a bowl, like just a regular bowl that sits in the house. So every day, you know, we're putting the potato peelings and whatever the coffee filter, you know, whatever, it sits in a bowl, right? So after, you don't want to leave it in there for too long because it does start to decompose. I will say one of the downsides is it does attract fruit flies as well. So you want to compost. So we do it in, like I say, we do it in stages. I have I have 2 compost bins. They sit outside the house, just off the porch. They don't. If you're doing composting right, one of the concerns always, it's going to smell. If you're doing it right, it actually doesn't smell. It has a slight odor. It's actually kind of a sweet odor. It sort of smells like flowers in some ways. It does not smell bad. It just has a bit of it's a very slight odor, and it's kind of a sweet smell. I don't know how else to describe it. It's not offensive. Let's put it that way. So I have my inside bin, which is basically daily. I take it out either once a day or maybe twice a day, and I literally walk outside and I dump it into my first compost bin. And I learned this kind of not the hard way. It's not really the way, but what happened is I was filling up my compost bin and it started getting too full to where I couldn't effectively turn it anymore. It was too heavy, and I'm like, you know, but it wasn't done composting. It had like. When you get done with this product, it'll be like black earth. You know, it'll be really grainy and fine and things. But when it's grainy and fine mixed in with full potato peelings, it's kind of you don't want to put the potato peelings out on your yard. At least I don't, right? So what I did is I made a second bin. So now I do 3 stages. I do from the house goes out to the first bin. First bin goes and at one point I stop putting in any more into that bin and I shift into the second bin. So all the new stuff goes into the second bin. You let the old bin cook, if you want to call it that. You let it cook for the number of weeks, and then you take that and go use it wherever you're going to use it. So I do it in 3 stages for me. You know, really pretty simple, right? I mean, all it required was one other extra bin. Mm-hmm. And again, I'll tell you how to make a bin. It's really, really easy. You can go buy these bins too. Like I said, they're out there. You can buy them. You know, I got online and was looking them up. I'm like,
well, it sounds like a pretty straightforward thing to do. If I ever get into gardening, I might try, you know, because that you're right that the end result is a really fertile soil.
Oh, it's amazingly fertile. Amazingly fertile. You know, simple. So let's just talk. Let's just talk. We were talking about the bins. Let me talk about the bins. So
yeah.
So what I did for a bin was I had some. John, you know, I carry all my tools in those big plastic bins, right?
Yeah.
So
yes.
I had a couple of those plastic bins. These are big, just like Rubbermaid type plastic bins that you can get at a big box store or Walmart, anywhere really. You can get them, but just, you know, and they run anywhere from, I don't know, $5 to $7. Right now, I'm using really big ones. I would suggest you don't use really big ones because they're they're heavy. Because think about it, it's full of dirt. But you take one of those bins and you just take your drill, and I used I think I used a 3/8 inch drill, and I just drilled a whole bunch of holes into my bins. Okay, and I used broken bins because they were broken anyway, so it really didn't matter. So I was recycling an old bin. Drilled all these holes in so that you get this airflow in and out of these bins. And I did it through the tops too, you know, all the way around the bins. Drilled the holes in. That's my compost bin. I take that and I take a small shovel and I do the turning instead of turning the whole bin. I tried that a few times. It's kind of hard. Instead of turning the whole bin, I just take the shovel in, and about once a week, I just turn it. I literally put the shovel in and turn it. I just turn the whole compost stuff, and that aerates it just as well. The other thing that the holes do is they allow some of the insects, and actually we've had earthworms come up into the bins because I have them sitting on the dirt over next to the house. But the insects will get in there, and the insects actually will help to decompose the material. So they, it's largely fruit flies. Straight away, it's largely fruit flies. When you open the bins, sometimes you get a little swarm of fruit flies. And it sounds bad, but it's really not that big a deal. You just pop it open.
Do you ever see, animals ever get attracted to that?
I really haven't understood why they're not, but they're not. Because I've heard people, that raccoons and things like to get around there. So we have the Arlo system at our house, and as we call it, it's this Arlo security system / game camera system. I mean, we have raccoons here. I see them all the time on the cameras. They have never disturbed my bins, never. And the deer haven't either, and they'll come up and eat the damn roses, but they certainly won't get into my bins.
Right.
And I mean, literally, we've had raccoons walk right down our front porch, which is the bins are just off the side of the porch. And these, how those lids are, John. They're not. You wouldn't call them secure, right? I mean, they're not secure. A raccoon could easily get in there.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Easily. To date, knock on wood, have had no problems with animals whatsoever. Not even the dog. Well, of course, there's no meat in there, so the dogs don't get into it. But had no animal infiltration. Only insects and earthworms. It really has been the only two things from the outside, and both of those are actually beneficial to the composting process. So I'm kind of like, okay, so that's cool, But yeah, I really did. I thought we were going to have raccoon problems, and just to date, no problems. And we've been doing it for 3 years now, about 3 years, I guess. And we've got hundreds of pictures of raccoons, so trust me. And possums, too. You think about it, right? So living here in the South, you got possums all over the place, and not had a possum get in there. So, and I used to catch possums in the vending business all the time. They love honey buns. Love them. All the time. Put a honey bun in the bottom. You want a perfect possum track? Take a garbage can, put it up next to a deck, put a honey bun in the bottom, and I guarantee you, if there's a possum around, he'll crawl into that bin. He won't be able to get out of the garbage can because it's got slick sides, and he'll be caught in there eating your honey bun. Anyway, that's another whole nother story. But be that as it may, haven't had any animal problems, so it's really been good. Cut down, and plus we're quote saving the environment, if you want to call it that. But it's been a good thing to do. I mean, the ground it's so fertile. It's amazing.
So are you just spreading this out, or are you doing this deliberately? For a garden.
So what I'm doing is right now I'm conditioning the soil up in my front beds at the front, in the front of the house again. So as you know, Georgia has this terrible red clay soil that it's really hard to grow anything, even like perennial flowers and things. It's just hard to grow. Brother, you put this stuff in there, you just you dig out that red clay and you just mix. And actually, when I do it, I actually will dig out the red clay, I throw that in the compost bin, and then I kind of condition it around. Mix it around, and then down the road, put it back into the ground, and oh my God, I mean, night and day different. And so we can grow whatever we want in our front bins. And then when I've had excess, like my bins, my beds are pretty well done at this point. So now I'm just taking and filling like low spots in my lawn with it. I just take the whole bin out there, I dump it out on the lawn, and I take the rake and I rake it out and smooth it out. The downside to doing that is you get a green spot.
Yeah, right. I would imagine.
It doesn't match the rest of the lawn for a while.
Right.
I think that's a very Georgia, at least a North Georgia thing, that it'll do that. But you get this you get a really strong growth out of it until the water leaches out some of the nutrients. But the dirt is just awesome. I mean, it's just awesome. So that's what I'm doing with it, and it's just kind of a way for me to cut down on my trash bill and take something that goes from taking trash to treasure. Basically, I take something that's from trash and turn it into something useful. Yeah. So, back to saving time, money, and aggravation. And it really is not. It is not a lot of aggravation. It might sound like it, but it doesn't take me 3 minutes a day to do this. Once I built it, I'll rephrase that. Took me a while to drill the holes in the bins. I will say that takes a little bit of time, but other than that, really, really simple. great way to just help out. And if you do garden, oh my, you need to do it. It's not even an if, you need to do it because it's just awesome. So, any other questions, John?
No, it sounds great. It's like I said, as we started off, I looked over at my neighbors, and I, just looked like a perfect opportunity as we talked about our, this segment of composting to put in, really rich soil. And like you said, it's hard to come by in some areas. And, if you've got that kind of an issue, then this is that sounds like a great way to overcome it.
Well, I mean, and this, your wife works at a home and garden store. Do you know what they charge for a bag of good composted soil?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, you can buy the bins usually for you can buy my bins if you're going to drill some holes in them. You can buy those bins for the same cost as one bag of good soil. Yeah. At least here in Atlanta. Yeah. And
I think this has all been a great tip for the folks out there, especially as we're into the summer months here, and to get their flower beds going. I certainly appreciate what you're saying, because I'm having a hard time growing a lot of things around here.
John, those funny plants that you grow with the 5 leaves, come on. Tell the truth.
Poison ivy?
Yeah,
that's
one.
3 leaves.
That's 3 leaves. So anyway, I digress. Folks, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, send us an email, questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. You can go to our website, leave a voice message. That's at handymanprosradioshow.com. Up in the right-hand corner, you can click on the thing. Or you can join our Facebook group at Handyman Pros. So get a hold of us, ask us some questions, and we'll go from there. John, so the other day I was out at my compost bin, and this spaceship came down, and it landed right next to my compost bin.
Did it have a bunch of potato peelings in it? He dumped his trash?
He wanted to dump his trash in there, and I said, that's fine, but I am going, before you do that, I'm taking your spaceship apart. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.